Good afternoon, and welcome to the live taping of the Star Coach Show. Each month, I meet with the audience live to tape my solo show. I'm Meg Rentschler. I'm the host of the Star Coach Show, and I also have the honor and privilege of mentoring and coaching and teaching thousands of coaches to become great at what they do. And with that, one of the tools I like to offer is the Star Coach Show. Strategies, tools, and resources for coaches. You can find us on all of the podcast platforms as well as our YouTube channel. So if you're watching me right now, hello, thanks for being here. And I would love to dive into one of the most asked questions I get as a coach mentor, as a coach instructor, and that is, what's the optimal way to price my services? Many times people come into coaching from other walks of life. They've been in the corporate world, they've been an employee somewhere, and now they're in a place of offering their services, which means they need to figure out, how the heck am I going to price these? What do I charge for my services? So our show is going to be a little bit of a guide, maybe even the ultimate guide to how to price your services. Before we go further, I just want to ask you to take a moment to subscribe wherever you listen to the show. The way that I know that people are getting value and listening and being a part of is to know who's subscribed. My YouTube channel, my goal for 2025 is to really grow that so that you know that you can come to the YouTube channel to get tips and strategies, to get those shorts that really give you a bang for 30 seconds or a couple minutes, that give you those nuggets of things that you can apply right away, as well as full episodes. When I am interviewing people, sometimes it's kind of fun to see who I'm interviewing and to get the visual that goes along with whatever you're listening to, if you tend to grab the show through a podcast app. So definitely keep listening. Do whatever works best for you. Just thank you for being here, and take a moment to subscribe. So when we think about this complex issue of pricing for our coaching services, one of the things that struck me when I went from being a therapist to being a coach was that at the time that I was providing my therapy services, there was really a structure around what therapists charged. Often, if we were billing people's insurance for those services, the insurance company sort of set the price structure, set what we were able to charge. Now, fast forward, I've now been out of the therapy field for about 15 years, and I know that many therapists are no longer accepting insurance, because I got to tell you, that's a tough gig, working with insurance companies. Anyway, that's another podcast episode. But in that, um, many therapists have sort of walked towards setting their own price structure. So they might be more in the realm of what we're talking about right now. As a coach, what I realized was that the price range for coaching services is vast, and there's many elements that go into it. Now, if you're thinking, Meg, you've had a show around pricing before. I have had shows around pricing before, but we're giving it a different slant today. I'm challenging you to think about a few other things and giving you some different pricing models to consider, and then looking at some examples, particularly in a pricing structure that I haven't talked about before, and then looking at what are the other key factors to consider, things like who your market is, what your level of experience is, what you're adding to what you offer. So, looking at that, and then we're also going to dive into um, our best practices, and then what are some of those barriers that we hit when we consider our pricing? What are some things that I'm consistently seeing the pitfalls that coaches fall into? So that's what we're going to look at today, and hopefully give you some food for thought around how you want to be in this space and what you want to consider as you are offering your services for a fee. Just also want to lean into for a second the concept of when we're a credentialed coach, and if we're credentialed through the International Coaching Federation, our experience hours are based upon whether we're charging for our services. So one of the things, I mean, in other words, like let's say you're going for your ACC, you have to have 100 hours, and of those 100 hours, at least 75 of them must be paid coaching. And the reason for that is if this is a profession, if this is something that you're saying brings value and that you're offering for value, we want to show that we are having an expectation of payment for that. And that's why you can't give away 100. You could give away 100 hours of coaching, but for your coaching log, for your experience log, you want to be getting into a practice of asking for payment for your service. And I can tell you that in my, gosh, now almost 40 years of experience in being a service provider, whether it was a therapist or a coach, um, people value what they have skin in the game for. People value what they are being asked to contribute to. So, yes, there are times that we might offer pro bono services for something that we really value or something we believe in. I think there's a difference in offering pro bono services because we want to offer value to something we believe in versus I'm giving pro bono because I don't believe in myself. And those are very different things. I'm going to encourage you to step into some of the practices that we're going to talk about today and challenge yourself to think about what it is that you offer and what people can invest in themselves in for the results that your coaching is offering. So we're going to start with some pricing models. I've talked about pricing models before. I want to just lean into those a little bit more, give you sort of a foundation that we're going to build this episode around. So, we're going to talk about 3 different pricing frameworks, 2 that you're probably very familiar with, 1 maybe you're not that familiar with, and it might not be a fit for you, but it's always helpful to just kind of be aware of what all is available. The first pricing model is that hourly dollars per hour kind of service-based pricing. So, you're going to sign up, you're going to pay session based. This is actually what I did as a therapist. As a therapist, it was a per session fee. If people came in for a set, it wasn't selling a package. It was, you come in for a therapy session, you pay for your therapy session. Now, I will say that most current research on what is kind of the price range for hourly coaching Entry level coaches, I mean, it does tend to go on experience. Entry level coaches might charge $50 to $100 a session. Mid level coaches might be $150 to $350 a session. Executive coaches are often commanding $400 to over $1,000 an hour. What is a challenge with this pricing model is that when people are thinking about dollars for hours, they they can get kind of caught up in, gosh, am I, if I'm writing a check for $500 at the end of a session, do I feel like I got $500? I mean, it just becomes sort of this perceived value. um, did I totally, now it's also a challenge to use every session to your fullest degree. um, I personally am not fond of the dollars for hours framework in the coaching arena. So, what I'm going to recommend is that you consider a package price, package based pricing model, which basically means that you're offering a package. And the reason why I like this is many things, but I don't want a client, I would like to help a client step into transformation. And I believe that one of the best ways to step into transformation is to say, this, whatever they're dealing with didn't happen overnight and it's unlikely to unhappen overnight, right? Or if we're working towards a large goal, it's not going to happen in an hour. So, what we can actually do is say, let's create a package of sessions and assessments and resources and meetings, maybe with other key stakeholders, like a package that's going to help you get to whatever this goal is or get these obstacles out of the way. So, often some of the new coaches that I work with offer 3-month packages. That 3-month package might be six sessions, it might be 12 sessions. It really depends upon how often you meet with your clients. It also could be for 30-minute sessions, 45-minute sessions, 60-minute sessions. So part of that is in the packages, you've got several variables you can work with. You can work with, like, we're meeting, twice a month for 45 minutes, or we're meeting 4 times a month at 30 minutes a session. There's lots of different things you can play with. You can put different things into your packages. Like I said, assessments, different resources. Often every time my packages include that I'm available to my clients between sessions if for those touch bases if needed. So a package allows you to build out towards a goal, and really create a more realistic expectations, but also they can you can create um, an offering that doesn't end up feeling like every hour is this particular dollar, but it's this investment towards a future goal. So in that, and I don't think that this idea of packages is probably new to anyone, but I think you can get really creative and do great things with your package goals. The third option around pricing models is not as, I don't think it's as common, but I certainly think that it's used. And it might be something, depending upon what you do, that works for you. And that's value based pricing. So it really links both the coach and the client to their outcomes, to the return on investment. There are certain kinds of coaching that this might be more effective for. Business coaches that work with small businesses or work with um, business return on investment, they might get a percentage of whatever that is. Now, it can be it has to be very clearly set out in advance. Baselines have to be set. How are we measuring that return on investment based upon the coaching model? However, if you're working with a small business owner and you're saying, we're bringing in coaching, you're at um, this is your sort of income right now, or your sales, and I'm going to work with all your sales leaders, and the percentage of I get a percentage of the increase that happens during this coaching time that I'm working with you. That certainly, career coaches might work on, I'm going to help you get from this position to a higher position, and then based upon whatever that increase of salary you get, I'm going to get a percentage of that. I've never worked on a value-based percentage basis, but it certainly is something that I've heard of some coaches working with, performance-based coaches. Now, the key thing, the core concept to this is that we really have to get a tangible value. You've got to figure out, how are we measuring the outcome that the client achieved? And then how are we super clear about what that is, so that that we're clear about the compensation that goes along with that. So it's definitely going to be it's going to include transparency and trust, and also, my concern about that a little bit is that I believe that our clients are responsible for their outcomes. They are, that ultimately the choices they make are their choices, whether they, you know, I'm going to do all I can around accountability and feedback and those kinds of things to help them achieve. But if my income is built into what they do, that's a little bit concerning for me. But that's just me, and I would just encourage you to think about what works for you. But those are three different kinds of pricing structures. Okay, so now we've set the stage for the different kinds of pricing structures. Let's talk about what we should consider when setting a price. So first of all, and I hear this a lot from coaches, I think coaches are aware of this. I just want to kind of reinforce that your market positioning is different depending upon who you work with. So who is your ideal client market? If you're working with Fortune 100 CEOs, where the company is sponsoring the client, chances are that's going to be a very different price point than if you're working with college students who are coaching around what they want to do when they get through college, right? Like, I'm not saying that either of those is a better thing to do. I think both of those are very needed. We just have to be realistic about what will the market bear for the population that we work with. Now, I also would say that sometimes people assume that a market has no money in it. And I would just challenge you in that. Sometimes we have to get creative about how we offer our services, whether we're doing group or whether we're offering courses, or what are we doing to increase sometimes the way that we offer things. We offer a lower price but to more people. So just, not everybody is going to be a coach of a Fortune 100 CEO. Not all of us want to do that. I don't. So we want to consider, what will the market bear, but also you might need to get creative about how you offer your services. Now, I talk to lots of different people. I know that, globally prices shift, even locally in the United States. What you can charge in New York City is very different than what you can charge in, uh, Des Moines, Iowa. So knowing what the market will bear, doing your research is really key. Um, so in that, yes, we always want to be clear about our niche and what we specialize in, and knowing that we are going to be in what are other coaches who work with our niche and our specialization, what's the market bearing for them? It does require doing some research and also testing. So we'll talk a little bit about how we test the market for that. So market positioning, where are you at in that whole framework that we just talked about? The second, and I know I've interviewed people who disagree with me on this one, but I really would say that in my experience, your experience and your credentials matter for what you can charge. So when we look at our years of coaching experience, I'm going to do a little segue on this. Yes, and. So, yes, I believe that your years of experience as a coach are going to influence what you can charge. I also believe that coaches come into the field of coaching with lots of experience that they sometimes diminish because it's not coaching experience. So if you have been an HR leader for 25 years and then you go into coaching of HR leaders and you've got lots of contacts and you're brought in, you're probably going to be able to charge at a higher rate than than a new coach. However, I do believe that our years of coaching experience will impact as a whole, not the exception, but the rule to what we're able to charge. I know that I've had coaches say to me, you need to go out and charge regardless. I don't know. I haven't seen that really play out as a whole. I think that your certifications, your experience, your prior experience, all those things influence. And we might build the way up, just like I said, with hour to hour coaching, that tends to increase the more experience, the more client engagements we have under our belt. Because one of the things that we get as we get more experience is client success stories, testimonials, an ability to give case studies and things that we've done that often are part of the proposals that we submit for work. So, what's your market? What's your experience? And then what are you adding to your services that value add to that? I talked about the fact that all my packages offer in between session support. I think that we can offer assessments and tools. I get that it's expensive to get certified in an assessment. So we might start with, what do we add to the packages that is a lower fee thing that, even an online assessment. Because the thing about assessments is that yes, the more valid they are, the more reliable they are. They tend to be, and the more well known they are. They're definitely research based, and you have to pay to be certified in them, and you have to be trained to deliver them. However, there's also assessments that you can at least start the conversation around via character strengths. Um, Even the wheel of life, things like that, that people have to think through and give information. That's a great way to begin to use tools and resources to help your clients get tangible things from the session. So what are you doing? Are you offering uh, a group along with a group where they might get resources or get um, additional support in addition to their individual sessions? Do you have a community? Do you have a membership? Do you have a digital course? What's the value add that you have for your service? So I would encourage you to think about that. Now, often when I talk to coaches about pricing their services, they're thinking about the amount of time that they're giving and what they're charging for that. And I'm going to challenge all of you to shift into a business owner mindset as well. And part of your pricing, consider what is your outgo? What are your business costs? What are you paying for marketing and advertising? Are you paying for office space somewhere? Are you paying for technology, different membership to, like, I've got my coaching relationship management, my platform. I've got, uh, oh my goodness, so many technology things that I pay for, so many, my insurance, my certifications. So think about, what are your business expenses, your administrative costs? Do you have support services? It's not just, okay, well, it's okay because I'm only spending 45 minutes with this person. No, you're being a business owner. Your pricing needs to include um, the fact that you are a business owner and you've got costs as well. So all of those things should be rolled into or considered when you're setting your pricing. Now, what are some you know what? Actually, before I move into best practices, I'm just going to go through those 4 things to consider real quickly again. So, key things to consider: your market positioning, who your target market is, etc., your experience and credentials, the value added services that you're putting in, and your own business costs. Those should all be considered when we are setting our prices. Okay. Now let's move into pricing strategies and best practices to consider. First of all, you've heard me talk. If you follow this show at all, this is not going to be new information to you, which is, we've got to start with a clear value proposition. I actually have a show, What is Your Value Proposition? If you haven't heard it yet, we'll put the link for that in the show notes. You've got to be able to articulate specific outcomes based upon what your target market wants. Like right before I got into this, I was in the Star Coach community, such a great community, such wonderful coaches. We just did the Star Power Hour with Master Certified Coach Karen Capello, who, by the way, was fabulous. Thanks again, Karen. She brought it. And what we talked about was that when we do market research, we can clearly communicate our target market's biggest needs and what we do to help with those needs. So when we are able to meet with our target market, we can differentiate, what are we offering versus our competitors. Being able to start with that clear value proposition is absolutely best practice as we think about our pricing strategy. Our second best practice is going to be that sometimes we just need to test different pricing points. We might assume something, or um, wonder about things. So maybe having tiers of pricing. You might offer a 3 tiers. And often people say that when you offer 3 tiers, let's say a 3-month package, a 6-month package, a 9-month package, or offering those different tiers based upon the amount of time that you work, 45-minute sessions, 30-minute sessions, 60-minute sessions. I mean, there's just offering different tiers can let you see what's really resonating with your audience. But the other thing is that you can experiment with programs. You can pilot different things and see what is getting results for my clients, but also what's the price point that they're willing to pay. As you are doing these experiments, you want to gather information through feedback. What's the perceived value? What are the outcomes that are happening? All those will help you not only set your prices, but be able to speak with confidence about the prices that you are setting. Our third best practice is that you want to be able to clearly communicate your pricing without any hiccups, without feeling apologetic about it, about hemming and hawing. You want to be able to be very clear and transparent about your pricing. Make clear payment terms. Do you have payment terms? Are you are you offering a payment schedule? Is it one payment and done? Are you are you offering monthly? So for example, with the Star Coach community, I have a monthly rate that is, by the way, the lowest rate that people can get my, mentorship and answering questions. It's really a heck of a deal. But it's even a better deal if you sign up for a year long. Then you get 2 months for free and a bunch of bonuses. But it's very clear and transparent, and it is professionally presented. So I encourage you, whatever you do, do it with confidence. Think about, what do I want to offer? What can I offer and feel really good about? And how can I if people push back or have objections or ask how it is that it's that price, be able to not give excuses or even really justify as much as just explain. Be able to have a clear explanation and not be apologetic about it. So be able to have that clear pricing communication strategy that helps you confidently lay out, this is the value and the investment of working with me. Now, the fourth best practice that I would encourage you to think about when pricing is allow yourself room for growth. People often say, it's easier to increase your prices over time than to have to kind of backpedal and decrease. So start at a good place, but know that you've probably got room to grow because of all those factors that we talked about. Are you giving yourself the opportunity and remembering to review your prices? Maybe every 6 months or 12 months, you just do a review and you think back on all those things that we talked about. Where's my experience now? Have I gotten new credentialing? Have I added new services to what I offer? Am I getting so well known that I only have so many hours in the day that I can coach? And the reality is that I've got more people who want to coach with me than I've got hours to coach. So I might be increasing my prices in order to kind of do the supply and demand kind of thing. Now, whenever, and everybody's different on this, but for me, when I do a price increase, I grandfather in whoever's on my previous price. That's just what I do. You might consider, do I want to have grandfather policies? Do I not? Grandfathering in. So you can decide what you want to do with that. But be sure that whenever you're increasing your prices, you're just very clear about the fact that you're doing it. You can give a period of time. I would recommend that you don't just from January to February all of a sudden hit your people with a price increase. You might very well. Let people know this is like we're in the last months of this price, and then anybody who comes in at this price will be grandfathered in and kept at this price, but this is the new price. And this is the reason why, you know, um, we do X, Y, and Z. You're going to get these results. So once again, just be really clear about the upgrade of that price. Don't be sneaky about it. And also, you don't have to be apologetic about it. So as we include room for growth, the next best practice is that, and this is so coaching, right? We want to maintain flexibility. Flexibility is part of being a coach. So just because we have these clear pricing policies and we're transparent and non-apologetic about it, that doesn't mean that you might not choose to have sliding scales for certain populations, or that if you work with a sponsored client, it's one fee, and when the person is paying for their own coaching, it's a different fee. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. There, when I work with a sponsored client, I have to do alignment meetings. I usually have to do some kind of reporting. I have to check in. I mean, there is more work that goes along with a sponsored client. So there is reason for that. But just know that you've got, like, you might need to be flexible. You might need to dance in the moment. You might want to offer a payment plan. That's another way to be flexible. Geographics might influence the way that you choose to um, to charge, depending upon um, different different economic statuses in different geographic locations. So maintain flexibility. That's kind of who we are, and yet have a that remaining flexible means that you are being consistent in that flexibility versus one of the common pitfalls that can happen when we are setting prices. So we have two point. We've sort of talked about what are the different kinds of pricing structures that we can use. What do we want to factor in when we're considering our pricing? What are best practices? And now let's talk about some common pricing pitfalls that we really want to avoid to not give ourselves indigestion and not give our clients indigestion, right? So the very first is something that I see hands down again and again and again, is underpricing, because we who are we to charge for our services? So I have worked with coaches who are fabulous, who have come from these dynamic careers of doing all these different things. And then when it comes to hanging up their shingle as a coach and charging for their services, they are suddenly like, who am I to charge for my services? So I'm going to undercut myself, or just not lean into who I am and what I do. Now, I'll say a caveat with that. We've talked about the fact that you've got to give yourself time to get experience, and be able to clearly talk about the kinds of results that you bring. I get all that. And I would say that underpricing is a real problem, that we challenge yourself to stretch a little bit. Believe in the result that you're getting, and remember that you're not charging to work with so and so. I mean, you are, but really what you're offering is the result that people get. So sometimes we underprice because we're afraid that people are going to reject us. Now, anybody who's worked with me is going to know this saying: get your head out of other people's wallets. If you are offering a service, clearly communicate what it is that you're offering, put your price out there, and then be quiet. Do not feel a need to rush in and reduce, or let your client, if your client has objections, and we'll do a show sometime on client objections, but if your client has an objection, that it's more than they thought, or what am I getting for that? Just be able to then clearly talk about your value proposition. So our own lack of confidence sometimes gets in the way of being able to clearly communicate our price. So underpricing is the first pitfall that I'd like you to try to avoid. Overcomplicating the structure of your pricing can also be. So I'm going to share something that I did that I knew even at the time that I probably didn't want to do it. I just got in it and I didn't really know how to undo it. And anyway, so overcomplicating. About a year ago, I worked with somebody who I adore, and I adore her program. And it was to help people get a program go, like, be involved. What's it? A client management system, to get into a client management system. And I wanted to give a discount to people who are in the Star Coach community. But it just became so complicated. It was like, if you want Coach Automator, it's this price. If you're a Star Coach community member, it's this price. If you want to join Star Coach community so that you get the, I mean, it just became too complicated. So what I would say is that too many options cause confusion. We want to be able to have a structured pricing that just makes sense to people. So right now, to be a Star Coach member, it's this per month. It's this. If you do a year, you get 2 months for free. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Part of those complicated pricing structures is when we're unclear, once again, about the value proposition. So if we're not clearly representing our value proposition to a client, it can become unclear. I think that sales pages can get really unclear. They can become too mired down in all these different things. So I would just encourage you, what's your clear message? What's the value? What's the cost? And once again, it's fine if you want to offer a payment plan, but having lots of complex payment terms and convoluted, that can just get in the way of you getting your money and your clients being clear about the expectation on them. So have things be as uncomplicated as possible. The third pitfall that let's talk about trying to avoid is that concept, and this ties into something that we talked about earlier in including room for growth. It's failing to review and adjust as you go along. It's okay to increase your prices occasionally based upon your experience, based upon the supply and demand, based upon new certifications and new offerings. So remember that you are your own sort of accountability partner in this, or maybe get an accountability partner where you guys agree that we're going to come together and we're going to review our pricing policies and review where we're at. And because we can just get caught in day to day and just serving our clients, which is great. However, it's okay to kind of review those and pay attention to what's changing in the market, what's changing in demand, what's changing in inflation. All those things can be reflected in your pricing. And then finally, and this is what I alluded to earlier, avoid inconsistent pricing. Avoid, you've got Joe who comes to you and you're like, Joe could probably afford $500 a month, but I'm going to offer Jody $300 a month for the same thing. Now that doesn't mean that, like I said, that we're offering sliding fee scale, things like that. But if it's just like, this person looks like they have more money than this person, or that's like, let's be consistent and, once again, unapologetic about what we're offering, because we're offering a service that has value. frequently discounting our services because we believe that other people can't afford. Get your heads out of their wallets, just offer. And if in fact things need to be adjusted, maybe what you're going to adjust is the length of session. Maybe somebody says, I just don't think I can do that fee for, but you know, you could reduce, I wouldn't half it, but I could reduce for 30-minute sessions. And maybe that is, so there's ways to consider things, but don't jump into assuming that you have to do that. Just be clear, unapologetic, and consistent in what you offer. And you'll begin to build a reputation for doing a great job, that your services bring a value that people need, and um, and that this complex thing of pricing maybe isn't as complex if we're able to kind of follow the steps that we talked about today, consider those best practices, consider the result that you bring, and to know the result, you've got to get clear about what it is that you're offering and what is the destination that you're working toward. So I hope that those were helpful. Remember that each and every week here at the Star Coach Show, we're going to talk about strategies, tools, and resources to help you be the best coach and the best leader that you can be. And I hope that you take time to subscribe wherever you are. And what the heck is January? I'm going to ask one other favor. If you haven't left a rate and review for the show, I would love to hear, how is the show impacting you? You can rate and review wherever you listen. If you're watching me on YouTube right now, hello, delighted to have you here. And please leave a comment below about how this episode impacted you. So until next week, this is Meg Rentschler, wishing you the very best for your success. Remember that we're all here on this earth together. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Let's do the heavy lifting together. We'll see you next week.